It's unfortunate to say, but it seems that IndyCar is in a big crisis with no public plan forward. Recently, longtime engine supplier Honda has threatened to leave the series entirely after 2026 unless engine costs can be reduced. A lot of this cost has to do with the proposed hybrid systems that were supposed to come in for 2024, but continue to be pushed back further. But Honda's threat has to do with more than just the lagging hybrid development. In an article on Racer.com by Marshall Pruitt, Honda's motorsports manager in the US, Chuck Shifsky, said the following: "We have great concerns over the costs. If we were to choose not to renew, that would be the reason why. And it's easy to see. We don't have a third manufacturer, and there's a reason for that. It has to do with the cost. If the return on investment matched up with the investment, we'd have a number of other manufacturers involved." What he means by this is that the lack of a third engine manufacturer to go along with Honda and Chevy are putting a real strain on them. As it stands now, Honda and Chevy have to make engines for 18 entries each for the Indy 500, but if a third OEM was in the fold, that number would be reduced to 12 and ease cost concerns. But what's more interesting, and perhaps much more important, is the last sentence of that quote, where he essentially says that Honda is not getting a good return on investment, and if that IndyCar was more popular, they would have more manufacturers interested in joining. This then opens up the other big problem with IndyCar, and that is stagnation. The series is really on the other side of the spectrum from NASCAR and Formula 1. While those series may go overboard on trying new things to try to attract new fans, IndyCar essentially does nothing. They've run the same chassis now for over a decade with no new planned replacement, as that would cost money. The hybrid engines keep getting delayed, and the schedule seems to get worse, not better. In 2024, Texas Motor Speedway falls off the schedule and will be replaced by a non-points race at a club racing facility in the middle of nowhere in California that doesn't have infrastructure to support many fans. The return of the Milwaukee Mile is a minor plus, but it doesn't get its traditional date, 1 week after the Indy 500 yet again, meaning attendance will likely be iffy and the race will probably fall off the schedule yet again in a handful of seasons. IndyCar's core fan base is probably the oldest in all of motorsports, even worse than NASCAR's. Any young racing fan who wants to watch open wheel racing is going to watch F1, even though IndyCar is the more competitive series. What should really set alarm bells off though is the following. Shifsky went on to say, "We're looking for a wholesale change to the engine regulations so that we can eliminate fives and tens of millions of dollars of annual technical costs. Because if we don't, then it's too much money and we will go do something else. That something else could be NASCAR or a further investment in our Formula 1 effort, or something that isn't motorsports at all." Now obviously this is an open threat that IndyCar really needs to get their act together. Honda has been a staunch supporter of American open wheel racing since the 1990s. For the boss to come out and publicly say that they're willing to switch to NASCAR is a wild admission, and one that should not be taken lightly by anyone in IndyCar. Losing Honda would genuinely be a death knell for the series. In the article, Marshall Pruitt goes on to note how IMSA is bringing in manufacturers left and right because the cost is relatively low compared to IndyCar, despite IMSA not drawing the same number of eyeballs. I'm not going to suggest much on the schedule front because I understand that it's hard to lock down race dates, especially on ovals, with NASCAR owning most of the ovals, but on the engine side of things, the solution should be pretty obvious to anyone paying attention. There should be a common engine formula that can be used in IMSA prototypes and IndyCar. I mean, Ganassi, Penske, Rahal, and now Andretti with Wayne Taylor Racing all run GTP programs alongside their IndyCar efforts. I think this would be an enormous step towards fixing the rising cost issue. The fact of the matter is that IndyCar is struggling to stand on its own 2 feet as a series worth investing in because it is so stagnant and the underwhelming schedule doesn't draw too many eyeballs outside of the season opener and obviously the Indy 500. F1's rise in the United States has put pressure on IndyCar to remain America's favorite open wheel series, and they have totally failed to answer the call. Ever since Randy Bernard was forced out, the teams in the series itself have seemed to have retreated into their shells like a turtle and turned the focus towards stability. However, with an open threat of an exit from your biggest partner, survival is now the most important thing, otherwise there will be no stability. Leadership must go on the offensive, but it's unclear how exactly they can go about doing that in the position they've got themselves in. Let me know what you think. If you were put in charge of IndyCar, how would you fix it? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.